Now we put together who I think will have the best season.
Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's up YouTube, Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. I made a lot of videos poking fun at Kyler Murray, but like I said before, I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the league. And obviously, I definitely think Daniel Jones is going to be a really good quarterback. So I wanted to put these two guys head to head. Kyler played the full season and DJ played 12 games versus 16. So the stats are kind of lopsided because he missed 4 games. Kyler had 3,700 yards. DJ had around 3,000. He had 24 touchdowns and Kyler had 20. They both had 12 interceptions. Of course, Daniel Jones had a lot more fumble. They both had subpar offensive lines. They both had to pretty much deal with bad situations around them. They both had pretty good play callers as coaches. Both of their head coaches were offensive coordinators, and both of them, in my opinion, had great game plans for their particular quarterback. But as far as the supporting cast, Daniel had to deal with a lot of injuries. He had to deal with Nate Solder, who was the worst tackle in the league last year. He gave up 11 sacks. And Kyler had to deal with just being on a bad team in general. His defense wasn't as good, and he didn't have who he's going to have this year. As far as running the ball, Daniel had 270 rushing yards, and I think 2 touchdowns rushing. Kyler had 500 yards, so you can make an argument that Daniel might have had somewhere close to that if he played the full season, but I'll give the rushing edge to Kyler because that's pretty much his bread and butter. He's not a running quarterback, but as far as someone who can run at the quarterback position, he's towards top 3 in the league. So I'll give him that edge. But DJ can run. He can definitely run. And I think he had like the 3rd fastest time for a quarterback last year running. So he's definitely fast, but he's not as elusive in the open field as Kyler at all. Nowhere close. Both of these quarterbacks had processing issues. Daniel probably a little bit more because it showed up more. But Kyler led the league in sacks that he gave up because it was his fault and not because someone missed a block, but because he held onto the ball for too long or he didn't identify a blitz. So he led the league, but I'm pretty sure if Daniel might have played that full season, he probably wouldn't be too far behind him, or maybe he'd be ahead of him. But as far as processing, both of these quarterbacks have to get better, which every rookie quarterback that gets thrown out there is going to have processing issues. They're playing at a completely different speed, and it's just things that they haven't seen before. So I did a little bit of digging to see what the advanced metrics were. Daniel Jones was 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the red zone. He led the league in plays over 60 yards. Kyler led the league in plays over 50 yards. So that's kind of funny to see both of them towards the top in those 2 categories. But also, Kyler Murray led the league in screens, and he led the league in screen yardage. Now, that's not necessarily his fault because that's Cliff Kingsbury's offense. He threw a lot of short screens, and we saw that against the Giants. He threw probably 12 to 15 screens against the Giants, and he led the league in those passes. Another stat, he's the 2nd quarterback in history, Kyler Murray is, to get 3,500 passing yards and 500 rushing yards. So he had a pretty good season. We can go back and forth over and over again about who I think should have won. I think that guys like Daniel Jones and Gardner Minshew had a better record than him, and he had 1 more touchdown and less interceptions than Kyler, and he didn't get any votes for it. And Daniel had more touchdowns, and if he played the full season, he'd be up to 30 touchdowns plus. So we can go back and forth to see who I think should have won the actual Rookie of the Year award, but he definitely had a great season last year to get 3,500 passing yards, 500 rushing yards. The last couple of categories I want to look at is the supporting cast. Now, Kyler Murray has DeAndre Hopkins. There is no DeAndre Hopkins in that receiving core for the Giants. Daniel Jones is going to have Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate. Of course, he'll have Saquon as a receiver occasionally, probably more than occasionally, and he'll also have Deion Lewis. So you have to account for those guys, especially Dion Lewis, because he's probably going to be primarily receiving back. And for Kyler, you have, I can't remember the guys, Chase Edmonds, the guy that tore us apart last year at running back, who's also a pretty good pass catcher. He's going to have, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins, who's the best receiver out of all of these players. He's going to have Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella. His tight end is Max Williams. To me, I think that DeAndre Hopkins is far and away the best. Maybe someone like Evan Ingram, if he breaks out, could compete with him, but DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver here. But I think that the combination of Darius Slayton and Evan Ingram is someone that's going to equal, probably surpass the production of DeAndre Hopkins by itself. And then when you look at Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, even Corey Coleman, I think that's kind of a wash with Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald at this age, and Andy Isabella. So I think the receiving cores, you know, if you combine Saquon, you combine Dion Lewis, you combine Evan Ingram, I think the receiving cores are pretty flat. But let's be honest here, as far as just dog-on-dog wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins is the best. When you look at these two lines, I think the Giants' offensive line is going to be better this year. The Cardinals, they're adding Josh Jones at right tackle. We have a rookie coming in at left tackle. I think our rookie to start is going to be better than Josh Jones, but I do think Josh Jones is going to have a pretty decent year. He's a guy that was on my radar, but I think that Andrew Thomas to start is going to be better. Of course, it's beneficial to have a rookie on your right side instead of your left, so that's something to consider. When you look at their defenses, it's far and away, I think at this point, the Cardinals are better. They have a guy in Chandler Jones who almost has basically 20 sacks every year and doesn't really get any attention for it, but he gets so many sacks every year. We don't have anybody like that. They have Patrick Peterson. If he can put together a season where he can stay healthy, he's better than pretty much anyone we have. James Bradbury has a chance to reach that level, but if Pat Pete can get back to the level he was playing at for a long time, then he's going to be better. And when you look at just the rest of the defense, whether it be Isaiah Simmons, I think that those guys are better. Just from the secondaries, I think our interior D-line is going to be better than theirs. But as far as the entire defense, the Giants defense is looking like, with all these injuries and opt-outs and arrests, that it's going to be towards the bottom of the league. So I give Kyler that edge. Now we put together who I think will have the best season. So I also looked at their schedules, combining their schedules, everything I've told you, and what I honestly think will happen this year. So Kyler, to start off, is playing against the 49ers, who I think that'll be a tough game for him. And then he's playing against teams like Washington, the Lions. So he's going to have pretty easy games at the beginning of the season. To start it off, Daniel Jones is going to be playing against the Steelers, Rams, the Bears, playing against really good teams at the beginning of the season. And I think that's going to be a factor in who has the better overall season. Seeing that the Giants defense is going to be pretty bad this year. And on top of that, Kyler's schedule at the beginning is so easy. Having a schedule that easy at the beginning of the season is pretty much going to build confidence. I think that these players are going to relatively have similar seasons, except Kyler is going to get off to a better start. And Daniel Jones might have to be digging his team out of a hole because, like I said, the defense is so bad at this point. But when you combine the versatility of the Giants offense, because we have that X factor that is Saquon Barkley, I think these two teams are going to be relatively similar. If you compare them, I think that the floor for both of these teams is around 5'11" or 6 or 10. And then the ceiling is just as good as your quarterback can take you. If one of these guys jumps or both of these guys jump, their team will. We both are in divisions where we have sort of super teams, with the 49ers being in that division and the Cowboys putting together a juggernaut down there in Dallas. So after comparing all of these factors, I believe that Daniel Jones will still have the better season. Kyler is going to have the lead as far as easier schedule, better number one receiver. But Daniel Jones is just a guy who can get it done. He's been getting it done at Duke with horrible supporting cast. He got it done last year with guys like Cody Latimer and guys like people that just jump in and off the streets, guys who aren't on the roster this year, and he's going to have all of his weapons this year. Along with Saquon, along with Jason Garrett, who's going to let him throw the ball deep more, I think that the sky's the limit. And I think he's going to have to put up a lot more points and yards because his defense is going to be so bad. That's just what I think about it. It's my honest truth. And Kyler Murray, I think, is going to have the chance to have a better win-loss record because he's going to have to do less. But Daniel Jones is going to have the better statistical season because, like I said, he's going to be in a lot of shootouts, and he's going to have, as far as depth, he's going to have more than he had last year. And last year he was on pace to throw 33, 34 touchdowns. So Cardinals fans, I'll see you December 13th. It's Diggy546. I'm out.